All righty, everybody. Welcome to another Three Ventures blog post. Today, how to generate code with ChatGPT. I have Curtis Morty, our head of development, with me. We're going to be going through a demo on how to generate code with ChatGPT. The blog post is going to cover off on content, use cases, how to do more with less, as well as maybe building out a solution like this for yourself internally. But this demo is going to focus on the code generation aspect. Curtis, take it away.
Yeah, and the blog post also covers off on different things for like copywriters, marketers, etc. So, I'm going to share my screen here with you so we can just go ahead and get straight into the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about today. So, I have a prompt pre-selected here. So we're shooting this video a little bit after the blog post was published, and so I'm going to use the the legacy model here for GPT 3.5. And so this is a prompt that's pretty much in line with what we had used in the blog post. So, hey, make a GET request to weather APIs, and we just want to output, what the weather is on the page. This is pretty close to something that we had gotten for a response from ChatGPT the first time. So you can see it's going to give me a bunch of information. Hey, API key, here's your URL. Goes and makes the request, adds it to the page. If there's an issue, it looks like it's adding an error to the page. I didn't ask it for that. So a couple of the things that I could do here is like, hey, can you make the request using the Axios library? And I know that this is what I want to use because like for a specific project, we're already using Axios, and I don't want to use something like just vanilla on the front end. So we're going to
and vanilla there is just like basic vanilla
JavaScript, right? Yeah. So you can see it's going to use Axios here inside of an async await style setup, and that's like a promise and a promise. And so what I'm going to ask the code to do is now say, hey, can you make this request without using async await?
And now, as a software developer, Curtis, you've been doing this for the last 15 years. How important is it to understand the context of the code that it's giving you? Because at least from my perspective, I could see this as maybe being a little clunky.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think it's really important to understand what the end goal is that you need to be achieving with your code. So if you were to write this without ChatGPT, what would your perfect implementation be? It's going to pass all of your tests. It's going to pass your code reviews. It's going to pass and be placed into like a production context. And so knowing what that end code needs to look like is really important. So when you ask the tool to do something for you, it's trained on a large amount of data from the internet up until, this model up until like June of 2021. So you're going to get examples based on documentation that ChatGPT has made reference of or inferred, and then people's responses on like Stack Overflow and things of the sort. So you really got to know how to prompt the tool to get the specific output that you're looking for. And so that's what I did here.
So what about an example, Curtis? Sorry to interrupt. What about an example like I'm a developer. I see there's no comments in here. Can ChatGPT add a bunch of commentary in here?
Yeah, so I can say, hey, can you add comments to the important parts of the code base for me?
And while this is loading and we're doing this, let's talk about another couple use cases. I mean, have you used this to debug, and have you also potentially used this to understand how to program better?
Yeah, so specifically the debug side of things, we'll dive into that. I have a specific prompt I'm going to use to showcase this here to us. So kind of jumping back into what we were previously doing, you can see it's adding some comments into a couple of different parts of the code that we have here. So, make a GET request if the request is successful, if the request is unsuccessful. Nice English readable. You don't have to understand code, what's going on here. So that was a pretty good comment addition by ChatGPT. But if I start a new chat, what if I use the legacy model? Yeah. I'm going to say something like, why doesn't the console.log statement ever run or ever be called?
And while this is running, this is going to be good for us, I think. Obviously, if you're using ChatGPT, keep in mind anything that you put in here is going to train their model with. So if there's anything sensitive, don't put it in here. Just a couple good references and use cases. We are building, folks, ChatGPT clones. or they control basically the training of the model that's built on top of the
Yeah,
API?
you're putting data in here, so just be sensitive to the data that you're putting in here because
Correct.
you're not necessarily controlling the processing.
Go ahead and
behind this, yeah.
explain this, Curtis.
So yeah, this was just a very simple prompt that I have, and I can't really speak clear English here, but that's funny. But it still understood what I was saying. So index of, if you're trying to find the value of index of, if it doesn't exist, you want to check for -1. So you can see here that the ChatGPT found out that our condition was not fully expressed properly. So it said, hey, the reason why console.log is not being called is because your condition never actually properly evaluates. So this is a really great use case for debugging your code.
Condition of 6 is not defined in the variable above. That makes perfect sense.
No, yeah, because it's not defined, but when it's not defined, the value is -1. So that's how the function of index of works from a return perspective. Now, like for example, I was sick last week. We had an issue with like a analytics tracking library that we had built. It's nothing like super bespoke or like highly proprietary.
And again, we used our own internal ChatGPT clone for this.
Yeah, and we used our own clone for this. And essentially, what I did is I went straight lazy dog, put like 200 lines of code in there, and I really wasn't feeling well. And I said, hey, what's wrong with this? And it took about 30-45 seconds because ChatGPT was running a little bit slow that day. And that was the 4.0 model. And it said, hey, the code's not working properly because this one line of code is commented out. Like total facepalm moment. It was great because I was sick. There was an issue. I was the person that had to fix it, and without much thought, the tool was able to tell me exactly what was wrong. And sure enough, as soon as I commented out something that was commented during testing, sorry, not commented during testing, commented during development, all the tests started passing, things of the sort. So
that's great. So let's talk about a couple other things here. So we can obviously ask this to write unit tests for us. So any type of crazy busy work that you have after you've written really good code.
Yes.
ChatGPT is going to be a great use case for it. Again, do not put any sensitive code in here for the reasons we've already discussed. But in addition to that, if I'm a junior software developer, Curtis, or I'm somebody who's looking to use this to increase my productivity and my output, what are some key tips you have for them before we let everybody go?
Yeah, so it's important to know what's your end objective. And it's important to know your code base you're working in. What are the authorship standards in your code base? What are the things that you and your teams do and don't do with the way you write your code? And then when you're getting ChatGPT to help you like quickly stub out code or to do very generic things where the tool is really good at, you're going to want to make sure that the tool is writing code in a way that's going to be in line with your code base. And if it's not, you need to be able to provide it some instruction. You could very quickly tell it, hey, change this one condition to also check for something else, or please don't use this function, use another function, like a native function in JavaScript on an object prototype. So knowing how to properly develop and then guiding the tool to develop the way that you want the code to be developed is really important. And my recommendation is use the tool to do 70, 80, 90% of the work. And then the like really business specific logic that the tool is not going to have context awareness of, write that stuff yourself. But I think that's a really good entryway here into ChatGPT, how to potentially use it. And, what are some of the use cases for it? And then, just getting your hands wet with the tool and understanding how to make the most out of it.
That sounds great. And for those of you, if you've already got access to the GPT-4 model, we highly encourage you to use that. It's actually going to spot errors and make recommendations for how to improve your code without you even having to ask it.
It's far better.
OpenAI has been having a lot of software developers train that model. So if you can, default to the GPT-4 model if you have access to it. And with that, thank you very much. Enjoy the blog posts, questions or comments down below. And like always, we'll see you next time. Thank you.
See you guys.